everyone, welcome. We are going to be talking about fostering holiday cheer for the queers tonight, and we're just going to go right into it. So a little bit about what we're discussing. We're just going to talk about introductions in terms of identities, how Emma and I identify, general concerns for the holiday season. So there's lots of stressors specific to the LGBTQ plus community and experiences going home for the holidays or traveling, all the above. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to create a self-care inventory together. So a little self-help toolbox you can take home and keep in your back pocket to utilize later. And then we're going to talk about boundaries. So how to create some emotional boundaries with family members or loved ones in your life, and how to establish that support system and utilize effective coping and communication strategies.
So we thought we would start by quickly introducing ourselves. My name is Emma. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I personally identify as queer, and I am a staff counselor here at the Counseling Center.
And I'm Sammi. I also use she, her, her pronouns, and I also identify as queer, and I'm a postmaster's resident at the Counseling Center. And the purpose of this presentation tonight is just going to be, we wanted to create this resource for folks to utilize during long breaks. Like right now it's going to be the Christmas break, but we can also utilize these skills for summer, fall break, all of the above, just general coping skills, and some tips of how to keep yourself safe and in a affirmative headspace.
So the first thing we kind of wanted to talk about is just like some of the main potential stressors that LGBTQ plus folks might experience going home for the holidays or extended breaks. The first one is conflict with family of origin or people that are in the home environment. So this could look like a lot of different things. It could look like maybe you're not out yet and it feels unsafe being authentic. Maybe that looks like having to go by the wrong pronouns or the wrong name for safety reasons. It could be that you are out, but like are sensing discomfort from the people around you, or potentially flat out rejection or invalidation. Maybe you're out to some and not to others. And it also could look like hearing beliefs, values, or opinions that are like harmful or inappropriate questions or comments. The second is invalidation. So like we mentioned in the first one, that could be coming from others, and it also could be coming from our own thoughts if we feel maybe disconnected from our safe spaces, or have to put like embracing or exploring identity on the back burner due to safety. And then the last is access to safe spaces and people. So maybe there are fewer or more limited safe spaces depending on where you're going home to. Maybe the people that we trust or can confide in are not like immediately available in our environment, or maybe there are like resources around you, but you just don't feel safe utilizing them. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the main stressors that LGBTQ plus folks might be experiencing over breaks. The next thing that we were going to do is the self-care inventory together. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pull up the self-care activity. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so just generally, this is a great way to check in with yourself. Emma and I are going to go through the questions and kind of create a list on our own as if you were here, but we also encourage you to write down the questions, maybe pause the video and answer these for yourself, and just kind of do what works for you. There's definitely different approaches. So the first three are pretty self-explanatory. So asking yourself, how much sleep have I been getting? Is there ways that I can improve this? Maybe like when you go home, you're staying up later to stay with friends, or just playing video games or watching TV, whatever you might be doing. I know that it's hard once you get home. So checking in there. How are your eating patterns? So if you're feeling more anxious, you might be eating more or less than you typically do. So asking yourself, how can you be intentional with your meals, and how to be have like nutritious meals if you are eating, and what that looks like. And then exercising. So have you been moving your body? It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but even going for a walk or yoga, whatever that might be, to keep yourself moving and taking care of yourself in the physical sense as well. And then Emma, I'll let you talk about the first one.
Okay, so like Sammi said, the first three are more just like general check-ins of like day-to-day baseline functioning. And then the second part is more like specific coping skills we can use to take care of ourselves. So the first category here is self-soothing. So what are things that are calming and comforting when stressed? So this could be like specific smells that like are really comforting, or it could be like maybe different foods. So we're just gonna come up with some sample items that we think could be good ideas to generate, but like Sam said, feel free to add some more. So the first one I'm going to add is potentially wearing a piece of affirmative jewelry or clothing. So this could be something that is hidden. Maybe it's not safe to wear it like really visibly. So maybe like you're wearing it under your clothes or like in a more private part of your body, or it could be something that you're wearing more visibly if you're comfortable with it. So that's the first one I'm going to add to this list.
I love that one. The next one I thought of, I think that when you said smells, so I think of essential oils. So I think that could be really helpful. I know lavender typically is helpful with stress, and I think is the other one eucalyptus typically. Yeah, so I thought of that one for smell. And this one is
or like a candle too, could be.
Yeah.
Essential oils on hand. Potentially maybe like taking a hot shower. Could be something.
I guess sounds could be music or like meditation type of things.
That's a good idea. Maybe for like I guess I always think of self-soothing, like this one is like really getting in touch with all of the different sensations, sight, smell, etc. So I guess for taste, I'm thinking of like maybe if there's like a specific comfort food or beverage that like really brings the sense of peace.
Some hot cocoa.
Yeah, that's good for this season.
All right, do you want to move to distractions?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so this can be distraction, which we all know can be helpful sometimes. So what helps you take your mind off your stress? Some examples generated were like exercise, crafting, music, movies, reading, puzzles, cooking, etc. I think a really good way for distraction for me, I think about like talking to friends or support systems in general.
I'm gonna add into like safe and affirmative friends.
It's a good call.
Okay. I think that like some of the suggestions listed there are really good ones. I'm gonna also add like engaging with LGBTQ plus specific types of content as like a potential distraction. So that could be like different podcasts, or like websites or blogs, or like going on the social media of like LGBTQ plus influencers that are like inspiring or comforting in some way.
Yeah, there's tons of content and podcasts. Like I know if you just Google or go on Spotify and search LGBTQ or queer podcasts playlists, there's like tons of resources. And I'm just listing some specific ones that we have looked into that you guys can check out. As she's typing, I'm gonna think of another one. So I think exercise is a good one. So I know it's listed, but that, again, like I said earlier, can be yoga, it can be going for a walk, it could be like martial arts, like whatever that is for you, that feels helpful.
And then I will add, I know this also, like movies was listed, but like going on TikTok or watching favorite movies or TV shows can be a good distraction.
Perfect.
Okay.
Anything else there, Emma?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure people will have like a ton of distraction tends to be like the easiest category for people.
Agreed.
So we're just adding to probably the list of like 100 that people may have already, but I'm good to move on to emotional awareness. So this category is like ways to identify and express feelings, and the examples they gave were really good ones too. Again, journaling, using art supplies, blogging about that, about your experience. I'm gonna add coming up with some sort of self-affirmation. So an example one could be, I deserve to be loved and supported for who I am, or I am valid, just things that like, for LGBTQ plus specifically, like what are things that might be important to remind ourselves and check in with identifying and expressing our feelings related to identity specifically.
Mm-hmm. I love that one. Another one, again, as Emma's typing, I think of is, we're going to talk about them, but boundaries. So like knowing when to take a step back, and I want to be able to talk about that more later, but just knowing, again, when to check in with yourself, notice how much energy you're giving someone or a conversation, and know when it's time for you to take a time out.
Yeah, similarly, like knowing when and who to ask for support. Just like even knowing, like, and identifying those people is like a really important thing, I think.
Mm-hmm. And planning ahead of who that person could be, or people could be. Anything else, Emma, that you can think of off the top of your head?
I will just give a quick plug for the counseling center. We have this like self-help webpage that is like full of all different types of self-help resources. So that could be something that would be helpful. And I also am just going to quickly list like the same ones that were suggested above, like journaling, creating a piece of art, because I really like those.
Perfect. Yeah, the self-help resources, we have some on there for anxiety, depression, things like that, stress, tons of resources on there, and coping strategies and tips. So I also suggest checking that out. Take it away, sister.
Mindfulness. So this category is like, I usually think of like grounding exercises. So some of the examples they gave: guided meditation recordings, yoga, breathing exercises, etc. I feel like some of my favorite breathing exercises, like my go-tos personally, I really like the 4-7-8 breath and the box breath. I like counting, I guess. The 4-7-8 breath is like breathing in for 4, hold for 7, breathe out for 8. And that's really good for like regulating slowing down your heartbeat and just like regulating your system. The box breath is pretty similar, but it's counts of 4. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, and just like repeating that. So that's something you could do on your own. There also are like YouTube videos that you can follow along for some of those. Sammi, do you have like specific grounding exercises you tend to recommend?
I like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which kind of ties all of these things in together in a way. So thinking about all your senses essentially. So 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can taste, and so on. I think that can be helpful when you're looking at the emotional awareness, if you need to check in with yourself to like ground if you're feeling more anxious or stressed or any of those things. I think that one's a really good check-in and a grounding skill.
Okay. I will also do a quick plug for like LGBTQ plus specific mindfulness things. So there is a, like on Insight Timer, I found 2 cool like guided meditations. I'm just going to write down what they were called so people can research them if they want to, but there was a 5-minute body scan for LGBTQ plus and a trans embodiment meditation. So they're like created specifically for this community. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. They are really helpful. And on top of that, there's just a ton of meditations and recordings in general. Kind of like podcasts, I guess you can look up, but tons of queer friendly ones that Ed and I looked into. I know it's kind of repetitive, but they have been helpful and also really accessible and quick. So like, I know 5 minutes might feel like a lot of time or a little time, but just a good, like, accessible thing you can do in the car or before bed, things like that.
Cool. And for all of these categories, like, please feel free to add any, like, if there's specific mindfulness things that like you do that really work for you, like they can also be added to this list.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the last category is accessing social support systems. So who can I talk to when I need support? I feel like this one is really, really, really important, especially for like going home when you might be around people that are not who you would consider your support system. So potentially like leaning on campus resources from a distance. So I'm thinking of like the LGBT Center specifically, and the Nearest for Queers organization. Maybe also there are like online groups,
Mm-hmm.
or like social media, like following Instagram accounts, those kinds of things.
Yeah, we'll talk about specific ones in a bit too. So if you need ideas. I think the counseling center could also be a great resource. We have an on-call phone during the holiday season and also just after hours. So if you're on campus and you need support prior to going home and you just need an ear, that's always there. And you can always pop into the counseling center if we're here from 8 to 5. More than welcome.
Yes, that's a really good resource. I will add friends or supportive adults, or both, who know my identities. So like, I would think of those people specifically. Maybe they like know and accept you for your identities, or maybe they even share some of those identities themselves and could potentially like really relate to your experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, partners too. And I know we talked about Trevor a little bit on this presentation so far, but they also have a really great support and hotline as well.
Okay.
We got a lot on this little page.
Yeah. Okay, well, I am going to stop sharing this screen and go back to our presentation. Pull that up.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for listening and tuning in if you're still here. I think that is a really great strategy, and just like, again, a little toolbox that you can take with you, write it on your phone so you can always have it accessible if you need reminders that way as well. I think that's been helpful in our experience. So we're going to talk about boundaries, which Emma and I were super, I guess, excited to talk about, and we think it's very important. So just obviously boundaries for you are the rules that you set for yourself and within relationships. So it can be friendships, partnerships, it can be relationships with parents, it can be anything. And it's really for you, it's no one else's discretion. It's always up to you, and you can always change what those boundaries look like. So it's for you, it's yours alone. I guess some tips that we were thinking of, I think when you're in a tense environment or in a tense conversation that feels maybe invalidating or discouraging, which is real, I think it's helpful to remember to like stay in your own space and energy and stay respectful as much as you can and as needed for sure. So avoid like pointing the finger essentially, or yelling at someone or shutting down even. Just kind of be firm in what you're saying and try to get your message across the best way that you can using things like I statements. And that kind of shows, like, it models the person that you're talking to, like how you expect to be spoken to, and also shows that you're not giving them negative energy, that you're not appreciating yourself, if that makes any sense. Additionally, reflect on your boundaries before you go home or before you travel or before you extend a break. So if you know that a certain person might feel more activating or more tense than other people, like create a plan. If they say this thing, that's my line, or, if they push me too hard on this topic, this is when I know I need to like step back and do some mindfulness or go to my room or whatever you need to do. So I put when to disengage or ask for support. And by disengaging, I'm a big person on energy. Often, I guess my advice would be ask yourself if the conversation that you're having is going to be heard, if they're willing to hear what you're saying, if you're giving more energy to that person than they're giving back to you. I think those are really big questions to ask when you're thinking about boundaries, and when, again, to kind of push pause on the conversation for your own protective energy, and when to ask for support. So if it feels like too much, please don't hesitate to reach out to those support systems that we have talked about so far. And then some tips. Lots of people can be people pleasers. Go figure. I know there's a lot of us out there, I being one of them. So I put specific language that you can use that I have found to be helpful. There's some research on these things, and kind of focuses on the I statements. So not at this time. I've decided not to do this thing, or I've decided not to come. I've decided not to do this major if people are pushing on majors, which I know is a hot topic at long breaks as well. Or if there is conflict and, you're noticing that tension rising, this doesn't work for me. Maybe we can revisit this conversation at a different time. I'm just need to take a minute for myself, or I can't do this for you. I can't do that for you. Again, it's for you. You can change these things at any time. Emma, do you want to add anything there?
I think you did a really good job. I'm going to continue on with like an exit plan as a type of boundary to set. So maybe this is like more of a boundary with self. By exit plan, we mean kind of like a strategy for like, if when you're trying to communicate those boundaries or navigate difficult environments, it's not going super well and like you need to disengage and exit. There are some important things to think about. So you have those things in place before it's like already happening. So first is like, potential ideas that you could use for exit plans, having a friend call with a quote unquote emergency. So something to think about before going home is like who that friend might be and how you might communicate to them that you would like them to call and say that there's an emergency and that you need to step out. So identifying those people, and like maybe if you have a code word with them, that means like it's time, call me. I need to get out of here. Making sure you have those things in place before you're going home.
Mm-hmm.
Second is making statements such as I have to leave by X, Y, and Z. So like making a specific statement of like, here's when I'm leaving this situation, and communicating it to those people. Similarly to the first one, like support systems, who are those people that I can have around? Maybe not to say that there's an emergency happening, but maybe like I need just to check in with someone that like affirms me and I feel safe with and comfortable with. Like, who are those people that are willing to receive a phone call or a text for me and support me in that way? And letting that person know ahead of time that you may need to potentially be picked up if there's someone that's geographically close to you. Thinking of who has access to transportation and who would be willing to come get you or help facilitate finding a bus or those kinds of things. And then lastly, identifying emergency resources that are local to you. So like hospitals or numbers that are like your hometown specifically. Our final plug to just like do what you need to do to give yourself the out that you need.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to add to this slide, Sammi?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I really like that I have to leave by. I think an example of that, I think of like the holidays, if you're going to a family member's house or whoever's house, just saying like I have to leave by 6 p.m. and that creates a goal for you and for your family. Like you've spoken it, you created this goal like, okay, I'm gonna only stay for an hour and that's my boundary, that's what I can handle. So I think that's a really great thing that I'm thinking about, especially with the holiday season. But yeah, that's all I have for this one. So we have a ton of resources for y'all. A little bit of mental health, social media, which we talked about, and then advocacy community. So kind of some general support systems, and also some hotlines that are in there as well that we talked about. But generally just want to talk about us again, the Counseling Center, we're always here for support during the semester and even after, like we talked about with the on-call phone. We'd love to have you. We'd love to talk to you, one of us. So just please don't hesitate to reach out. If we aren't an option for you or struggling to get connected, Evergreen is a really local one in Boone that has a great support system at their center as well, or their practice as well. Yeah, and we talked about the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. So if you have a moment right now, maybe put that on your phone. If that's a concern, you can have that again in your back pocket. It's easily accessible and you don't have to go searching for it. Other things, therapists like me, if you are interested in counseling, and maybe not the counseling center or just want longer term care, that is a great way to filter like identity, location, things like that, what you're looking for. Maybe you want someone who's trauma informed or who works with other hidden identities as well. So that is a little bit about mental health. Emma, do you want to talk about social media broadly?
Sure. So we just wanted to give like some quick suggestions for potential Instagram accounts that like might have LGBTQ plus specific, all types of things. Maybe it's like Queer Nears and like the LGBT Center at App State. They have Instagrams and they've been doing a really wonderful job of like sharing tips and like posting about events and all types of different resources specific to App State's community. So that's like really good resources for that. Again, Evergreen Counseling Boone is like a local private practice here that is specifically for LGBTQ plus and women, and they also share resources and have information about their practice. And then Inclusive Therapists similarly is like helping get connected with therapists that meet your needs, whether it's trauma informed, whether you want them to share certain identities. So just different Instagram accounts for that self-care plan suggestion that we came up with earlier of like accessing LGBTQ plus specific content.
Yeah, and then lastly, just advocacy and community. So some local things like Pride Among the Pines. There's a book club in Boone that's running for LGBTQ folks. The Henderson Springs Center, we talked about the LGBTQ Center, Trevor Project, all of those are great resources that have a ton of like resources and tips and guidelines, just a lot of information that's always there and easily accessible for everyone. So that is what I have there. Questions. So obviously this is a recording, but if you ever have questions, you're watching this, please call the Counseling Center. Do not hesitate to ask any questions that you might have generally, or we're available as well, Emma and I and other staff members as well, to answer any questions you might have. Our information's on the website, the Counseling Center website. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. We hope you found something that's helpful with this. We hope that you enjoyed, and thank you.